Friday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you from 3 until 6 this afternoon. We got tons to get to. We've got a full guest list. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on everything going on with the severe weather in our area. You just heard from Dan, the update on all the watches and warnings, especially those to the east of the capital city. So stay safe, stay indoors, lower level of your house, follow all the protocols, and keep a radio by you, and we will have you updated all day long on what's going on with the severe weather. And, of course, we'll be with you on the Sports Voice of Kansas throughout the afternoon today for 580 Sports Talk. We do have a full show jam-packed for you coming up in the next 3 hours. We will recap thoughts from Media Days. Dan, obviously, just returned from the trip down to North Texas. So we'll get his final thoughts on what he saw, what he heard, any of the big buzz down there in Arlington. Final thoughts on what we heard from KU, K-State as well. Also, I know Brett Yormark really tried to kind of brush it off and hand wave it, but there's definitely some buzz about realignment coming out of Media Day. So we'll talk about all that coming up here in just a matter of moments. Also this hour, we'll play Change My Mind, and we will have Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com, join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Royals baseball returns tonight, assuming the game does indeed get played if the Storms move through and they're able to play game one of the series tonight. So we will preview that game in the 5 o'clock hour. We've got overtime coming up just after 6 o'clock today. And we will get some second half predictions for the Kansas City Royals. Who's going to improve the most in the second half? Who are we worried may not improve in the second half? Who is going to get traded? Maybe other than Scott Barlow, because I think we all kind of assume Scott Barlow is going to get traded. Who is going to get traded off this current roster, though? We'll get to those kind of things coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We will also hear from Bill Hancock, who Dan and Jake got to talk to down in Arlington this week. He is the executive director of the college football playoff. Some interesting stuff from Bill Hancock, so we'll hear from him. We've got What Is Wrong With You, plenty of 580 Sports Talk headlines, a whole bunch coming up on 580 Sports Talk today. And, of course, we would love for you to be a part of the program. You know the text line number, 785-272-9429. And if you want to follow along on YouTube, our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Make sure you go subscribe and check us out. Be a part of the comment section and watch along during the show today. Piece of information, and I know, Dan, in your neighborhood, there were some trees down. Vance on YouTube says there's a tree down and blocking Southeast 22nd Street at the cross-section with Colorado. So things are a little nasty out there. So, again, please stay safe, stay indoors, lower level of a house, some sort of sturdy building you can get in, and stay safe with us this afternoon.
Yeah, there's presently, I should say, certainly not pleasantly at all, but presently a flash flood warning for the area. So if there are any traffic-related details that anyone wants to pass along, we'll take those at the text line, 785-272-9429, or in the YouTube comments if you have to be watching along on YouTube today. And we'll do our best to keep people informed. Again, we did get to the warnings at the top of this hour. Nothing new to report there, as this storm is fast-moving and quite intense. And there may be more to it. We may just be on the leading end of it, and there may be more coming in behind it later on this afternoon and into the evening. So we're going to keep our eye on that, and we are going to keep you informed as best as we're able.
I wanted to start today, along with the weather information, obviously, with some final wrap-up thoughts from Big 12 football media days. You were there the last couple of days, Dan. A lot of fun. Was it busier this year than last year? I know you had mentioned that last year it was sort of weirdly desolate. Like the local media we see at every big Big 12 event was there, but not really anyone else. Did it feel like there was more energy this year? I would hope so, considering how much new blood is entering the conference.
It definitely felt like there was more of a presence there. And I think you can start with more of a national presence there. I mean, when you think about the people who cover college sports, college football, the prominent voices in the college sports media, some years you get one or two of those reporters in the house. But all of the names that you know were wandering around AT&T Stadium. We're in the same buffet lines as I was. Pat Forty was there. Mm-hmm. Bruce Feldman was there. Brett McMurphy was there. Ari Wasserman from The Athletic was there. Lot of national presence. And I think part of that, Jake and I were talking about this off the air on the way back from Dallas yesterday. part of that is the Big 12 benefiting from going first.
Right.
Like that matters. Like it's clear schedule for those national writers, but they don't come up there if there's not a story to tell. And right now there is a story to tell about the Big 12 conference, where it is, where it's gone, how far it's come just in the last year, the 4 new members and the energy that they bring to the league. And so if there's a big story to tell that has some national interest, then the big names, the heavy hitters, are going to be there. It felt like a much more vibrant Radio Row this year than in past years. And there did just seem to be a little bit more excitement, a little bit more electricity in the air, which is, I understand if that sounds like a silly thing to say about what is at its heart a media event, like one giant press junket to promote the Big 12 conference. But you could definitely, I think, sense some excitement and some energy that maybe, I mean, look, I haven't been to every one of these, but I've been to all but one of them that they've had since 2017. So I'm a veteran of the process, and it did have a different feel to it than it had in previous years. There's no doubt about that.
I think for me, when it comes to KU and K-State specifically, because we got to hear from them on Wednesday and Thursday, respectively, I feel like general confidence was what I took away the most from the interviews you guys did with the quartet from KU and the quartet from the K-State and the head coaches of both as well. And Gene Taylor, too, who we got to hear from on the show yesterday. But I feel like it comes in different forms. You know, for K-State, it was more so, this is what we do. Like, we're confident because look what we just did. We have a bunch of players back. This is just what we do. We are handling our business as it needs to be handled, and we're confident that we're going to do that. We will find ways to not replace Deuce Vaughn, but find a way to contribute where he was contributing in the last couple of years. You don't necessarily just replace Julius Brents, Josh Hayes, Felix Anudike-Uzama, Echo Boydo, all these players that left, but you do find a way to make up for it. You find a way to find new players who step up and become those superstars like those guys had in recent years. So it was just sort of a business as usual kind of confidence, I thought, for K-State. Whereas for KU, and we heard this from Devin Neal on Wednesday when he was live with you guys at the start of Sports Talk. And I think we noticed that certainly from Jalen Daniels, you show up with your own highlights playing around your neck. Obviously, there's confidence oozing from you. But it felt more like we belong. Like, hey, we're not the doormats anymore. We are not the just happy to be here. This is the only time anyone's going to have anything optimistic to say about us all year. It felt like, no, we are part of the race in the Big 12. We are a bowl caliber team. We are going to win a bunch of games. We're going to finish middle of the league or better. It felt like it was sort of a confidence because they felt like they've arrived. They felt like we are here and we are now in the mix. We are not the afterthought anymore. So I felt like it was general confidence for both, but it just sort of displayed itself in different ways.
So again, I've been to, since 2017, all of these that have been held but one. I didn't have them in 2020, and I wasn't at the 2021 event. But so I've been to a handful of these, and I have always enjoyed the K-State contingent. They have always sent really great representatives of their program. Really enjoyed talking to Will Howard. You talk about somebody whose confidence is just grown by leaps and bounds since he took the reins essentially of that offense in the TCU game, and then for good and for always in the Oklahoma State game a couple of weeks later. And enjoyed the personalities of Kobe Savage and Deuce Green, and certainly Cooper Beebe was great to talk to as somebody who is a Kansas kid, Kansas City, Kansas kid. This was the first time I've ever been to one of these and had more fun talking to the KU contingent. That's not to say that the K-State guys weren't fun, aren't confident, aren't great players, great kids. I'm not saying that. There was a confidence to the KU contingent and a relaxed nature to them. They feel like they belong.
Yes.
Now they feel like what they're representing is something that is serious, something that is real, like a real football program. I loved the answer Rich Miller gave. We had Rich Miller. Believe he joined us live. I can't remember if he joined us live or not, or if we.
I think he did.
If we had to reran that one, but we talked to Rich Miller, and one of the questions that I asked Rich was, what is the biggest difference now being a Kansas football player right now in 2023 in July? What's the biggest difference now as opposed to what it was like to be a Kansas football player? Because this is now Miller's third year with the program. He's been there every year. Leipold's been there. So what's the biggest difference now than last year at this same exact time? And the smile on Rich Miller's face could have powered all of AT&T Stadium. He said, man, people look at you and they smile. And I loved that answer. Like, there's respect. And when you have respect, when you have regard, when people regard you as someone to be taken seriously and not, oh yeah, there's Kansas. That's the easy win on our schedule. You put your chest out a little bit and you walk a little taller and you have that confidence and you feel like you can be yourself and have some fun and that you've earned that. You've earned the right a little bit. And so the KU players who were there, I mentioned Rich, but also you mentioned Devin Neal. We talked to Jalen Daniels. Kenny Logan was wonderful. He's awesome. Well. He was the first guy we talked to, and he was terrific. It's just that confidence and that belief that we're a real football team. We're a real football team. We're going to beat some of these guys this year. We're walking around. You walk around that venue and they're not bumping into coaches and players who they know are just going to deal them a 20, 30 point loss when October and November roll around. No, they walk around saying we are now your peers. We're going to beat you this year. We can beat you this year because we got the offensive player of the year walk around with his highlights dangling from his neck, just in case you forgot.
Incredible stuff. I think too, for like the group that was chosen to go, and I mean, it makes sense. They were your best players last year, and they are among the best players going into this year and have been for years. I would imagine that group in particular, all of whom have seen some stuff. I think for them in particular to feel, after years of being the downtrodden, the beaten down players, to now be at the point where they are getting that respect, I imagine really shone through when you got to see them and when they did the rest of their media availabilities. Like Jalen Daniels, when he showed up, this program was not in an especially good spot, right? Like this is, he's been through some stuff. Devin Neal, we heard this. He told you guys, growing up, he wasn't going to the spring game.
Right.
Like, he wasn't excited about that. The teams he was excited to watch, even being a KU fan from Lawrence who wanted to go to KU, it's like, I watched Oregon. Like, they were fun. That's the kind of football I wanted to watch, that I wanted to pay attention to. Kenny Logan has been through as much as anybody in this program over the last several years. He has been in it the longest. And Rich Miller went from success at Buffalo with Lance Leipold to suddenly in 21, what the hell? What did I transfer into? To then being a major piece of last year's roster. And he got to see that turnaround, and he's gotten to see a lot. And I imagine that it is so important to that crew, among others in particular, though, that, wow, we took this step forward. We are a part of what is bringing this on. And it's not just the program is getting respect, but frankly, we are getting respect as well. Because frankly, if you didn't think you were going to grab attention and you didn't think you were getting mutual respect, I don't think you put your highlights on a chain around your neck. Like, I don't think if KU was picked to finish last in the league and they were still a laughingstock, JD's walking around with that on his neck. Whereas, again, for K-State, the opposite side, like, you know what we do. Like, this is what we do. This is what K-State has been for 30 years now. And we are just going to keep being this machine over and over and over again. I thought it was a blast getting to listen to all these guys, the KU guys especially, because I could just tell listening through the radio or when I heard it before it would go on the air, like there's excitement. Like there is like a jovial nature almost to how these guys are feeling.
They could have fun. They could have fun because, again, they don't feel like they're going there and being paraded around and, hey, here are the 9 teams that are going to beat your brains in this year. Here are the 9 teams that are going to hand you your butt on a plate.
They know what football being fun is like.
Yeah.
And like, that sounds really remedial, but it's true. Like, if you lose 80% of the games you play in your college career, you probably don't think football's all that much fun anymore. But these guys got to see fun football, and I'm excited for more of it. I thought it was awesome.
And I think you're right that K-State's confidence is much more of a, I don't want to say a more humble confidence because I don't think that's quite right, but it's a quieter confidence. It's a, hey, they walk into the building where they won the Big 12 championship game last year.
Yeah.
And so we asked all those guys about it. And it was funny to ask Gene Taylor about it and say, well, I wasn't here when that
happened.
happened.
That story was remarkable.
He was sequestered
I could
as
not
a member
believe
of the selection committee.
Freaking out the cleaning staff at the hotel.
Yeah, really, really funny. But, those guys, they march into that building all business, because the last time they were in that building, it was all business, and they upset TCU and they won the conference championship. And I think, to a man, they all think not that they can do it again. I think they think they're going to do it again.
Yeah.
And I think the reason they think they're going to do it again, despite the fact that you lose an All-American on offense in Deuce Vaughn, you lose the conference defensive player of the year and a first-round pick in Felix Anudike-Uzomah, they feel like that wasn't like the peak. That's just what they're starting to build, and that's what they can be year in, year out. And the catalysts this year aren't maybe going to be the individual talents, but it's going to be the units themselves. It's going to be the depth that they have at pass rusher that replaces Felix Anudike-Uzomah.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the offensive line returning intact that's going to allow them to put up the points that they were putting up in the second half of last season, in addition to having your starting quarterback back in Will Howard. So their confidence is rooted in the fact that they've done it before, and maybe feeling like not every year do you win a conference championship and go into the next season feeling like you still have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. But that's Kansas State.
Outside of the Jayhawks and the Wildcats, and maybe including them in this next question, but the other fun part about being there and having, I've only been once to football media day, but I've been to basketball every year since 2017. And the part of the fun is you meet other people, or you see your media friends or whatever, or you just you hear things. It's, for me, who still gets excited about the, even though I've been in this industry for a long enough time now, still ooh, I feel like I know something. Ooh, I feel like I have sources now. There's a, little inside baseball, but it just feels like you're a part of something. You're a part of something secretive. What was the buzz? What were the national folks who were there, or, people you knew who were covering it from other places, or who were also covering our local teams? What were people talking about? Was it mostly about, we got new teams here? Was it mostly about, I've got a few 4-letter words for Oklahoma and Texas? Was it realignment stuff? What was kind of the general buzz during the week?
It was a lot of how far the league has come, where when we convened at AT&T Stadium last year,
mm-hmm.
It was an open question as to what is the college football, the college sports landscape going to look like, and what is the Big 12's place in it? Brett Yormark talked at last year's event about the need to tell the Big 12's story. And I think this year there's a feeling that the Big 12 has, in fact, gotten really good at telling its own story,
mm-hmm.
at building its own brand, if you want to phrase it that way. So I think when you talk about confidence, I think it extends to everyone in that conference feeling like, hey, we're in a league that's going to be competitive. We're in a league that's going to be fun. We're in a league that's built to last. We're in a league that's going to be just fine when Texas and Oklahoma leave. And I think there's a feeling from all of the 12 programs that are going to be remaining in the league after this year. I think every one of them honestly feels like we can be a perennial year in, year out contender in this league. Every single program feels that way. Feels like they're either positioned to do that right now, or they're positioned to continue to build towards that. Even the newcomers. I mean, when you think about the newcomers to this league, Cincinnati played in the college football playoff 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Houston has been in a New Year's Six bowl game. UCF claimed a national championship.
You put it on the side of their stadium
not that long ago. BYU, I mean, it's old. It's not exactly in high definition, but they have a national championship. Yeah. Houston played big-time college football in the Southwest Conference for a lot of years.
Yeah.
They feel like they're back where they belong.
They've got a Heisman winner.
And we talked to Chris Pesman about that, a guy who played at Houston with aforementioned
mm-hmm.
Heisman winner Andre Ware. And he said, yeah, this is what our alumni, our donors, our fans, this is where we feel we're where we feel like we belong. So I think that everybody in the league feels like there is a brass ring up for grabs because every other conference in the country has a defined hierarchy. Certainly the Big Ten and the SEC have a defined hierarchy that there are some programs in that league that know there is no getting into that. You are not getting into the club. If you are Northwestern, you are not getting into the club. Well, certainly not right now.
Yeah, certainly.
Maybe they're a bad example. Let's use Purdue. If you are Purdue, you're not getting into the club.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be the program that all of a sudden you're knocking off, especially without divisions now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're probably not playing for a conference championship. If you're Vanderbilt in the SEC, you're not playing for a conference championship.
Yep.
But of the 12 schools that are going to remain in this league, every one of them can feel like that's accessible for us.
Yeah.
We can get there. We can play at the highest level, make the college football playoff, be a big-time college football program in the new Big 12. And so that I think there's that energy and that excitement. And from a media perspective, it's the unknown. It's not knowing which of those programs it's going to be that makes it really, really fun to follow.
Really quickly, I did want to hit on realignment for just one point. The comment that Brett Yormark made right as he was opening, I think it was maybe the second question of his Q&A with Chris Budden from ESPN, and she asked about realignment and the open for business quote and everything. And Yormark said, people really ran with that as just a realignment thing, but it's, business is business, and it means the social media, and it means Mexico and Rucker Park and all these other things we're doing, and brand partnerships and all of these other things. And he really just seemed to move past that quickly, and we have a plan, but you can't know about it. And just really moved beyond that. After a year of nonstop realignment talk. I mean, we shared the quote just the other day where he said he wanted it to be 14 teams in the league. He said, and I listened to a podcast out of Oklahoma City this week about how, like, he said first year with 14 teams, not our 1 year, but our first year with 14 teams. I just felt it to be interesting that he moved past it so quickly. It made me feel like, is this calm before the storm? Like, is he building to something? We've got to get to a quick timeout here, just about half an hour into the show. But before we get to our commercials, we've got a weather update.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and pass along these flash flood warnings here that have just been issued. We have a flash flood warning for northwestern Douglas County and southern Jefferson County until 8:30 p.m. Central Time, including Lawrence, Oskaloosa, Perry, McLouth, Ozaukee, Lecompton, Williamstown, and the Kansas Turnpike between mile markers 189 and 205. There's also a flash flood warning for southeastern Wabaunsee County until 8:15 p.m., including Eskridge, and a flash flood warning for Shawnee County and southwestern Jefferson County until 7:45 p.m., including Topeka, Rossville, Tecumseh, Silver Lake, Meriden, Willard, Pauline, Grantville, and Perry Lake. Interstate 70 between mile markers 347 and 355, and the Kansas Turnpike between mile markers 176 and 188. So all those areas are under a flash flood warning. Turn around and don't drown when encountering flooded roads. Most flood deaths do occur in vehicles. So because of the heavy rains that we have experienced here this afternoon, those are flash flood warnings that are currently in effect.
Let's get to a quick timeout. We'll play some Change My Mind next on 580 Sports Talk.
Look.
Time for a quick round of Change My Mind before we get to our Chiefs Insider with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Dan, change my mind. Mike Gundy is not only right about Bedlam, he should be going in even harder against Oklahoma and the death of the Bedlam rivalry.
I think he's right. I do think that if you leave a conference, you cannot assume that you will be able to maintain your rivalries that you have become accustomed to in your old conference. That is typically the way it works. And the bitterness may not last forever, but it's certainly going to be in the short term. Now, obviously, you want to think of a local example. The Kansas-Missouri rivalry is a great example of this, that there were hurt feelings. And after about a decade, both schools looked at it and said, we would really benefit for bringing this back because this means a lot to our fans. And rarely, if ever, like something else that Jake and I were talking about off the air when we were at Big 12 Media Days is if you're a fan of college sports, the sooner you understand that none of this is really for you, like that none of the things that are happening business-wise in college sports are done with you in mind. Like, the sooner you come to, stage 5 acceptance with that, like the better off I think you're going to be. Like, Oklahoma didn't make this move for Oklahoma fans. They didn't. They made this move to make themselves more money. This isn't better for Oklahoma athletics from a fan perspective.
Yeah,
it's not. Losing Bedlam is bad for Oklahoma fans who look forward to that game, look forward to that series across all sports. It's bad for the fans. But that's their decision. And Oklahoma State has every right to say, our decision is we're not going to play you. You don't want to be in our conference, then we don't have to play you. We're not going to play you. 100%. I respected Texas's attitude on the matter when it came to Texas A&M leaving the Big 12. Yeah. I respected Kansas's attitude on the matter when it came to Missouri leaving the Big 12. Now, time heals all wounds. We may see Bedlam again someday down the road, but I think for now, Mike Gundy's 100% right.
You have to accept the consequences of your actions. Are you going to get more money? Sure. Are you going to lose the things that actually matter to the stakeholders in your university that aren't just worried about the business? Yes. You got to live with that if you're Oklahoma.
So my change my mind is along a very similar line. Brett Yormark in his opening remarks talked about honoring the contributions of Texas and Oklahoma to the conference in their final year in the conference. Change my mind. Brett Yormark should do that, and the conference should do that, but only for Oklahoma.
That's pretty funny. No, you know what? No, I throw them both in the trash. Oklahoma has played KU, K-State, Iowa State for 100 years. They joined the Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association in 1919. They've been playing these programs for 104 years, and they said, "Nah, we're good. Well, that doesn't matter to us." So no, I don't think anything about Oklahoma should be honored. I thought Oklahoma and Texas should have been left out of the hype video for this year. That it was really cool with the updated logo and we've always been more than 12. No, they should have left them out. Like, nothing they do should have, if you're talking about building for the future, they should not be acknowledged at all. And I resent the thing that he said about this is celebrating everyone, the teams that are staying, the newcomers, and Texas and Oklahoma. Nope, absolutely not.
I'm okay with celebrating the school that has, like you said, hundreds of years of history going back to the Big 8 and the Big 7 before that. I'm okay with celebrating Oklahoma a little bit. Texas had one foot out the door of the Big 12 conference the minute they arrived. Yep. The reason the Big 12, as we did know it, started to dissolve was Texas's dalliance with the Pac-12. No, it's very much a good riddance Texas from me.
Yeah, thank God for that. We're going to move from college football to the NFL with Matt Derrick after this on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Chesko with you. ask you something. How can 6 of you miss a play like that?
His name is Matt.
Are you ready?
My name is Matt.
Let's go.
Nobody covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than Matt Derrick, and he does so over at ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk every week at this time on Friday afternoon for our Chiefs Insider. You can go find Matt, again, at ChiefsDigest.com, and you can find him on Twitter, at Matt Derrick, on Threads, at Matt Derrick KC. Matt, where's the Chris Jones contract? We got Quinnen Williams yesterday. I feel like we should already have a Chris Jones deal done.
I know, and I guaranteed everybody 23 and a half hours that it was going to take after the Quinnen Williams deal, and it's still not done. So I still think it's going to be pretty quick. It seemed like that there was the expectation around the Chiefs that it'll get done before training camp starts. So maybe next Friday, it might be another week away, but there's still plenty of time for it to get done. And it seems like right now both sides are optimistic.
Before we get to what Jones's deal specifically will look like, will you give us a little bit of an explainer of how that Quinnen Williams deal works? Because already, and Fulton and I talked about this yesterday, we knew this was going to be the case. All the talk in the wake of the deal was, wow, $96 million, $24 million a year for 4 years. But in reality, it's all about the guarantees. And when you only focus on the guaranteed years, suddenly it looks a little bit different. So can you tell us what this Quinnen Williams deal actually looks like and functionally what the actual amount is?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you look at the big numbers, and we haven't gotten all the numbers yet. I haven't seen them yet, at least as far as especially the final year. But when you hear $66 million guaranteed, that sounds like it's going to be in the first 3 years of the contract. So that really makes it a $22 million deal. And it tells me that there's probably $30 million in that final year of the contract. And in that sense, it looks a lot like the same deal that Chris Jones signed in 2020 when he signed his extension. Because remember, that was, 4 years, $80 million. The guarantees were all in the first 3 years. And there was never any intention that Chris Jones was going to play this year under the $28 million franchise or the $28 million cap. That it was always a year for renegotiation. So, that brings the Quinnen Williams number down a little bit too, because, he could still conceivably play that fourth year under a big cap number. It would certainly by that point be less than the franchise tag. So it's not inconceivable, but it also puts the 24 number in a little bit different light, because now you're talking that guarantees really only make it $22 million. And that kind of surprised me. I thought Williams was going to get a better deal than that. It's still a really good deal. He's the second highest paid defensive tackle by most metrics, but that kind of surprised me that it wasn't for a little bit more.
So to that last point you just made there, Matt, because to me, I was thinking, all right, I will write out the Chris Jones deal. It's going to be 4 years for $100 million, so we can flex and say I've got the most total value. The guarantees, instead of 66, maybe it's 70 or 69, so you get an extra mil guaranteed per year. And then he can flex and say he's the second highest paid DT, and we move on into training camp. But to that point you just made, thinking Quinnen Williams might get a bigger deal, do you think it's possible that maybe it's not quite as simple as what I just laid out for Chris Jones then to get his new deal?
It's conceivable, especially because where Quinnen Williams comes basically slotted in with the defensive tackle market he sets a new level for tier 2, but there's only one player in tier 1. Tier 1's there, Aaron Donald, and he's got 31.67 million that he's making a year, and it's all guaranteed. He's in his own class, and even that deal, the Rams paid it to him to keep him from retiring. Chris Jones isn't really talking about retirement, so I don't know that he's got that kind of leverage. And I think he wants to continue playing, and playing this year under that deal is going to be tough. So, to me, it does set the market for sure. But at the same time, what makes it complicated is that there's still a, $7.5 million gap between the top dog and the number 2 dog. And when you're talking about Chris Jones slotting in there, he could conceivably argue that he should be paid $29-30 million a year. He'd still be the second highest paid defensive tackle. And the Chiefs could say, well, 25 also does get you there. So, it is not as simple. And it's going to come down to really what Chris Jones is willing to settle for.
We are joined by Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He's our Chiefs insider, and he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. You find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and of course, hear him at this time on our program every Friday. Matt, are DeAndre Hopkins and Chris Jones just trolling everybody in the Instagram comments on Chris Jones's Instagram, or do you think there's really some smoke here, more smoke, that maybe the cap savings from a Jones extension could go to a certain former All-Pro wide receiver?
Yeah, could it happen? Absolutely. I mean, the smoke is there, and until someone flat out comes out from the Chiefs and says, no, there's no interest, it's not going to happen, I think you have to take it seriously. When it comes to interpreting emojis and comments on Instagram, I go back to Chris Jones was going to tweet every single day until Frank Clark was a Chief again, and that didn't happen. So I don't think Chris is quite the assistant general manager for Brett Veach quite yet. But hey, the only thing, the other part of it too, that you kind of have to take with a grain of salt, is that if there was a contract out there that DeAndre Hopkins wanted, he would have signed it already. So more than likely, it's either there's not the team that's interested, or the money's not there that he wants. And obviously, the Chiefs can't offer him that money yet. They have to get the Chris Jones deal done. But also, if the Chiefs have cap space, suddenly DeAndre Hopkins has leverage with other teams. So if he's just simply trying to leverage some of the other club for more money, the Chiefs signing Chris Jones helps him, because he can then say, well, the Chiefs they've got a need, they got a want, and they got some money now. Maybe you can get more, but I do think that there's interest there. So I'm definitely waiting to see what happens when Chris Jones gets done, because if DeAndre Hopkins is going to come to Kansas City, one will come right after the other pretty quickly.
In the more likely than not, I think at this stage it's fair to say, in the more likely than not event that the savings from a Chris Jones extension do not go to DeAndre Hopkins, do you think the Chiefs pocket those? Do they maybe look to do another contract extension? Or do you think they kind of maybe keep their powder dry and see if anything developed over the course of the training camp?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, right now the Chiefs have about $1 million in cap space. Depending upon how much money they give Chris Jones in the form of a signing bonus that gets prorated and the length of the contract, I mean, that will affect how much space that they got. But, you're theorizing that if they get about $15 million in cap space, then, yeah, you've got room for DeAndre Hopkins. You've got room to go into the season, which Brett Veach likes to have about $8 to $10 million of cap space there. And, yeah, you've got some guys like L'Jarius Sneed that they've been talking about possibly getting an extension done with. So, yeah, I mean, there's other places that they could put the money. You could keep your powder dry and save it for next year when you've got some other free agent wants, and maybe you want to then try and get something done with some of your free agents like Sneed, like Willie Gay. So there's a lot of different directions they can go depending on how much savings they get from Chris.
Pivoting topics with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Have you gotten to watch Quarterback on Netflix yet?
I am most of the way through episode 2, so I got a little ways to go, but it has been it's very entertaining so far.
Yeah, I was going to ask your early impressions of the Mahomes parts, because let's be honest, what I am reading, it sounds like Marcus Mariota doesn't really need to be involved in the show at all, and there are no surprises from the Kirk Cousins portion. He's every bit the cornball dad that we all kind of thought he was. So what are your impressions of what you've seen from Mahomes an episode and a half into Quarterback?
I mean, some of it is that I think it's kind of the same thing to me with Kirk Cousins, in that Patrick Mahomes is who he is. I don't think there's anything really surprising in there to those of us who really followed him closely. I think it certainly is humanizing him a little bit. I mean, you definitely see some sides of him that maybe he hasn't shown before, but I think he's always been pretty genuine. I'm taken and going back to when he told us at the end of OTAs about this, and mentioned that since his production company was involved, that hey, there were some things that he cut out of it because he didn't want them to be out there. And then I see him going out with Max Crosby, and I'm like, what in the world did Patrick cut out of here that he didn't want to see? Because he's letting us see some pretty good stuff.
We're chatting with Matt Derrick. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He joins us at this time every Friday for our Chiefs Insider. Do you think that there's anything more in terms of intensity we're going to see from Patrick Mahomes in the near future? I know that we get to see the counting on his hands when he throws the touchdown pass against the Bears. We see this stuff in Quarterback and the trash talk with Max Crosby and all that. Do you think that the more he wins and the more accolades he receives, we may see even more of this? Or do you feel like we've kind of hit peak Mahomes in that regard?
I mean, it is going to be interesting to me, where he finds his motivations going forward, because that's one thing that we've always talked about, is that he does seem to find the slight to be motivating. And I mean, he's not getting many more slights anymore. I mean, yeah, he'll probably get some in the form of trash talk. Some guys are always going to try and step on Superman's cape. The Cincinnati Bengals are always going to be there for that. But I do think it's going to be a little bit harder, but at the same time, I mean, you see the way that this guy is wired and driven. I don't think the player he is on the field is ever going to change. I don't think that suddenly he's going to become a more mild-mannered player on the field. I think he's always going to be that guy that when the switch flips, he's always going to go to that place. So I can't see that changing, but yeah, maybe some of the things, the counting on the hands and kind of stuff, maybe it'll start to go away if people stop provoking him. But I also haven't seen any signs that teams and players are going to stop provoking him.
Speaking of the Bengals and provocation, did you make anything of the most recent Joe Burrow comments? I thought they were super innocuous, but he was asked about playing the Chiefs and the cockiness and the going back and forth and all that, and he pretty much said, hey, they do their thing, we do our thing, and we'll see them in December. And I know some fans ran with it because that's what fans do. We like to run with things and make a big deal out of them, especially while we're so thirsty and hungry for football. Did you make anything of that, or was that pretty much ho-hum to you?
No, with you, I thought it was pretty super innocuous too, because I mean, but it's July. There's nothing going on in July.
Yeah.
So you gotta take anything you get and try and twist it into something, and take it the wrong way. Otherwise, what are we going to do with ourselves? So no, I thought it was a really good attempt by him to just move on and not say anything that was going to provoke the Chiefs and just put it to bed. And I mean, I'm ready for that. I think it will all stop once we get some football action back, and the guys on both these teams get asked about other things other than each other. That will happen. Well, there's plenty of time. We'll get back to the trash talk in December, because what's going to happen the week that these guys get back together again.
Last thing I've got for you, Matt, we'll get you out of here on this one. How shocked were you when you learned that Chiefsaholic was apprehended this week?
I was not shocked, because I just didn't think that he was going to be able to stick out very much longer. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this operation he was running up clearly showed, I think, a little bit more initiative and maybe I don't want to say intellect, but certainly a little bit more organization than I thought he had. So I think he did a pretty good job sticking around as long. But if you're wearing a wolf costume and that's your MO, eventually they're going to get you.
I couldn't believe he hadn't crossed one of America's borders. Like, I couldn't believe they found him in the U.S., man. I figured he was halfway to Honduras by now.
The Sacramento suburbs, such an underwhelming place to get caught.
I mean, if you're not doing a Google search for countries without an extradition treaty, you're just not trying.
I felt the exact same way. Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs and does it better than anybody over at ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every week at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour on Friday afternoon for our Chiefs Insider. Go find his work at Chiefs Digest. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Take care, everybody.
That is Matt Derrick, the best of the best when it comes to covering the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. I didn't watch the ESPYs because sports are already about winners and losers, so I feel like it's redundant and unnecessary. I did think when I saw the clip of it, though, Pat McAfee's joke about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chiefsaholic was pretty funny. It's like, when you guys are out there celebrating, just know so is this guy. He's profiting off your success. I thought that was pretty funny. Let's get to a break here for our national news. When we come back to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, we'll make some second half Royals predictions on 580 Sports Talk. now time for the second hour, not 2 o'clock, second hour of 580 Sports Talk. There's a 2 in there somewhere.
You weren't even on the 12 to 3 shift the last few days.
No, I wasn't. I've been on the same shift this entire time.
I just managed to get that wrong.
I had the digit right, the actual words wrong. Second hour, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you, taking you into the weekend.
Do you know what 2 is, though? 2 is the number of baseball games the Royals are going to play tomorrow.
That is correct. The Royals have been banged tonight. No Royals versus Rays. Start of the second half coming up tonight. The official word from the Kansas City Royals, tonight's game against the Tampa Bay Rays has been postponed and will be made up tomorrow, July 15th, as part of a split doubleheader with Game 1 starting at 1:10 p.m. and Game 2 starting at 6:10 p.m. If you had tickets to go to tonight's game, those will be honored for the rescheduled game, which is Game 1 of the doubleheader tomorrow. It is, again, a split doubleheader. So it is separate ticket for Game 1, separate ticket for Game 2. And I was so excited, I figured they were going to have like a whole spectacle tonight for Bastille Day, and now nothing. Terrible.
They do that a lot.
Would have been great for fireworks. Really tragic. Do you have a favorite Bastille Day fact?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah. They're not selling fireworks to the public in France this year due to public unrest. There's a fun fact for you. I've seen the Bastille.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was right down the street from the hotel I stayed in when I was in Paris. Yeah. It's like, oh, man. That's one of the most historically significant buildings in all of European history. How about that? So there's your Bastille Day facts for this July 14th. But yeah, no Royals game tonight. So we will dip out right at 6 o'clock. No overtime either. And we will have 2 Royals games coming up tomorrow.
Christopher in the YouTube comment says, God told the Royals and Rays he wants them to play 2 tomorrow. Wonder if Ernie Banks told him to say that.
Let's play 2. I miss Ernie. Mr. Cub. Is any player in certainly baseball, but maybe even North American sports, as synonymous with a single team as Ernie Banks is being Mr. Cub?
That's a great question. That is a really good question. Maybe in baseball, maybe, again, this is my era. I think there are a lot of people around here would tell you Brett with the Royals.
Yeah.
But like Tony Gwynn with the Padres for someone of, our vintage probably is very similar.
Yeah.
Ripken with the Orioles.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Don't know if you get that as much in other sports.
I think basketball, there have been a couple. I mean, I still think of Tim Duncan when I see the Spurs. I still do. He was there his whole career. Dirk Nowitzki played 20 years with the Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe played forever with the Lakers. Although the Lakers have had so many superstars that it's not quite the same. That's the amazing thing about Ernie Banks. Never played a single postseason game. Played his whole career with the Cubs. Not a single postseason game. Man, my team sucked forever. They really, really sucked for a long time.
At least you'd have to live through most of it.
Yeah, that's true. I've had to live through very little of it in the grand scheme of things. But no, I mean, that was the thing. Let's play 2. I wish we played more doubleheaders in baseball. I do. I was not opposed. I don't remember why this topic came up in 21, I think it was. I know it must have been 2020 because we were trying to come up with ways that they could play as many games as possible that season. And the thought of, well, what if one day a week is like travel day and one day a week is a doubleheader? Kind of what the minors do now, where you just play 6 games in a row against the same team,
right? And
you just don't play on Mondays. I thought, what if Sunday is just a doubleheader day? Everybody plays at 1 and 4 on Sundays. And then I don't know about Mondays are always off days, but just something like that. I thought that would be fun. I like doubleheaders.
Major League Baseball's trying that this year. No, or next year. They've got 2 scheduled doubleheaders.
I like that.
In one of them I know is Rockies Giants in San Francisco. I don't remember the other one, and I don't remember the exact date. And we'll get to this a little bit more in headlines because Major League Baseball did roll out the 2024 schedule yesterday, including all 30 teams, their full schedules. But it's a scheduled doubleheader, which means like typically you get a doubleheader like tomorrow for the Royals because of the cancellation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got what are called the split doubleheaders, where you buy a ticket for one, get out, leave. we are clearing the premises before we start game 2.
Like after the first 2 games of the day during the NCAA tournament first weekend. Like, all right, you had first session tickets. Everybody got to get out. And then we'll bring you in for the nightcap. Yeah, I love the traditional doubleheader. I mean, college baseball still does it all the time.
Yeah. Royals have also already announced that for tomorrow's doubleheader, left-handed pitcher Cole Reagans will be the 27th man, which every team gets an extra player to use in a doubleheader. And not only will Cole Reagans be the 27th man, the newly acquired left-hander will make his Royals debut as the starting pitcher in Game 2 of tomorrow's Double Dip.
So to that point, then, who are they dumping out of this? Then are they dumping Marsh or Singer? Because that Marsh was scheduled to start tonight, Singer tomorrow, Lyles on Sunday.
No, they're pushing somebody back, would be my guess.
Yeah. Oh, man, missed the Jordan Lyles start. Oh, no. Oh, how tragic.
Yeah, what a bummer that is.
Yeah, dang. Oh, man. That's interesting. Well, good for Cole Reagans.
Yeah, acquired in the Aroldis Chapman trade, in case you weren't / haven't been willingly paying attention to Royals baseball.
He has been kind of okay since being acquired.
I can buy that.
I believe, and don't necessarily quote me on that, but never mind. No, he's been bad. Never mind.
All right.
Maybe he had a good game and his other game did not go poorly. But through 2 outings, he has an ERA of 5.59.
Okay.
And he's only pitched 9 2/3 innings. So never mind. It's been rough for Cole Reagans. But maybe he just needs to face Major League batting, and that will fix him. Or maybe not. We'll see. He will get his Royals debut coming up tomorrow in Game 2 of the doubleheader. We did want to get to some Royals notes here for the second half. We'll also this hour have What Is Wrong With You and hear from Bill Hancock, the executive director of the College Football Playoff. But with the second half starting, we're already past the halfway point in terms of number of games, but the All-Star break we know is kind of the midway point of the season. Some predictions for the Royals and individuals for the Royals in the second half of the year. And this was spurred on by actually seeing a post from Fangraphs today that is titled, "Here are 4 hitters primed for a big second half." And the reason I clicked on this immediately when I saw it on Twitter today is the photo on the post is of Bobby Witt Jr. And I thought, oh, okay, interesting. And he is the first player listed here in this post. And essentially, if you want to get down to the stats, his weighted runs created for the year to date is 99. Similar to OPS plus, WRC plus is normalized to 100. So 100 is Major League Baseball bang average. His preseason projection was to be at 114 for the season in WRC plus. So he's 15 points below that. That would indicate that based on Fangraphs projections, he should be in line for a much better second half to get to that projected number. And that's not a guarantee, but that is something they are projecting with their numbers. So that led me to thinking, what are some of the other things, or what are some of the other predictions for the second half of the year? And Dan, you came up with a list of specific questions for specific Royals and how they might perform after the All-Star break. So let's start with positives. Let's start with improvement. Fangraphs believes Bobby Witt, among all of Major League Baseball, is one of the players most primed for a strong second half of the year. Who is the one player who stands out to you as the most likely, or the one you are most hoping for or most expect to see have a strong or improved second half of the season?
Well, it's cheating, but I think Bobby Witt Jr. is the right answer. I thought it was interesting analysis of Witt's swing. You should go read the article at Fangraphs. Check out some of the video, the GIFs they have in the article. It's kind of hard to talk through a GIF on a radio show, but there are some adjustments he's making to essentially his angle of attack on the baseball and how he's hitting the ball, and able to drive the ball with some more authority as a result, to some swing tweaks that he's making. I am still holding all my Bobby Witt Jr. stock. Every bit of stock that I would have bought on Bobby Witt Jr. when he made his Major League debut last year, I haven't sold not one share. I'm keeping my Bobby Witt Jr. stock. I think that he has clawed his way up above Major League average in terms of OPS plus over at Baseball Reference. He's got the on-base percentage up to 300. for the first time all year. Second half gets underway this weekend. And I think that he has the opportunity to consolidate the power that we've seen from him and that we saw from him early in the season, and the improvement in batting average, the improvement in fewer strikeouts that we saw in June and in early July as he has started to get his season really on track. We know he hits the ball hard. We know he has the potential hit for power, has terrific speed. It's just a matter of pairing selectivity and hard contact with that ability to drive a mistake and hit a pitch you're supposed to hit out. As he matures as a hitter and improves as a hitter, I think we've already started to see signs of that starting to happen in June, July. He finished before the All-Star break really strongly, and I think that he's going to have a strong second half and have his best season so far as a major leaguer.
I think he is certainly an easy pick here. I'm going to go with the vet. I'm going to take Salvador Perez as the player I'm expecting to bounce back. He's really been struggling. We touched on that the last time we talked about the Royals, that he has really been going through it at the plate. And our guy, Jordan Foote from Sports Illustrated and the KC Sports Network, posted a couple of things on Twitter the other day. I think this was on Tuesday, this must have been, about how Salvi has performed this year versus even last year. And yes, Salvi was an all-star, even got a hit in the all-star game. But I think anyone would tell you he doesn't look quite as effective right now at the plate as he does generally. And looking at some of the underlying numbers for Salvi this year compared to last year, his average exit velocity, how hard he is hitting it on an at-bat to at-bat basis, lower this year than it was last year. His percentage of hard hits, he's still good in that category, 75th percentile in all of baseball in hard hit percentage. Last year, he was 91st percentile. And when you're a guy who, as your Salvi, relies on so much of your production being slugging, because you're not just getting on base, you're not necessarily a singles hitter, you're not a contact guy necessarily, you rely a lot on hitting the ball hard and hitting it far. So you want to be hitting it as hard as often as possible. That has dipped this year. Expected slugging numbers. Obviously, you're hitting the ball less hard less often. You're not expected to slug quite as much. Expected weighted on base, one of my favorite stats, way down this year compared to last. He's not barreling the ball quite as much. He's striking out a little bit more often. The other numbers, walk percentage, chase rate, Salvi is what Salvi is at this point in his career. But the fact that he has dipped in all of those, and yes, he is older, but I think you open up a few more DH opportunities for him with Vinny not in the lineup the rest of the year. I hope that would help out a little bit. And I think just given who Salvador Perez is, we will see a better second half from him, or at least the next few weeks, next month or two should be better than what we saw over the last month, because not very pretty for Salvi in recent memory. On the other side of this, who are you most worried is going to continue to disappoint? There's one name that sticks out to me, and I'm curious if you're on the same page here.
Continue to disappoint would be, there are a lot of guys who have been disappointed, and I think are going to continue. But there's one player in particular I'm a little worried about as the second half gets underway. In his last 22 games, Nick Pratto is hitting 178 with a 265 on base and a 315 slugging percentage. Just 2 home runs and 4 doubles in that span. And most alarmingly, in 83 plate appearances, Pratto has walked 6 times and struck out 39 times. 39 out of 83 is almost 50%. It is a distressingly high strikeout percentage. We have talked about this throughout the first half with regard to Nick Pratto, who came out of the gate hitting very well. Average was well above 300. We mentioned at the time, it's a pretty unsustainable batting average on balls in play. We're going to need to see a little bit more power, or we're going to need to see a few more balls in play before we decide if we're going to really buy in on Nick Pratto. And I'm afraid I can't do it right now. The strikeouts are too numerous. The home runs are not numerous enough. He's still a young player. He's early on in his career. I'm not giving up on Nick Pratto, but I'm worried that there is going to be a further adjustment period. And I am a little concerned long-term that he's just not going to make enough contact to get to his power and be a viable first base option for the Royals in the future.
He is a little bit younger than I thought. I thought he was approaching 26. He's actually only approaching 25. He'll turn 25 right after the season ends. I think we could sort of see this coming early on this season when he got called back up, because we talked how often about the batting average on balls in play, a number that was so ballooned out of proportion that there was no way he was going to be able to keep that number up. So to counterbalance what was going to be an inevitable regression to the mean, an inevitable crash in that statistic, he needed to hit the ball further more often. Because if you're hitting for more power, you can live with that. You can live with that number declining by about 200 points in all likelihood, even in a good year. And you're still driving guys in. You're still driving yourself in. You're hitting the ball over the fence. That is a good thing. It just hasn't come. And you have pointed this out before. Corner infielders and corner outfielders have to be able to slug. Those have to be slugging positions. That's why we've said numerous times in regard to Maikel Garcia, no, great. Like, he's been a godsend for this team. He's watchable. He's fun. He steals bases. He hits. He gets on base.
Got a nice glove.
Not a third baseman, though, because third base, you usually think you're hitting 25 home runs. You're slugging a bunch.
And
That's
if you're not a 30 home run guy at that position, you better be about a 320 hitter with 40, 50 doubles, like an Alex Gordon.
Right. That's a great point. So, yeah, there's definitely some concern there with Prado, although I will say him being a little bit younger than I thought does make me feel a tiny bit more encouraged. The player I'm worried about the most is MJ Melendez. I think the next, give it 2 weeks maybe, are going to say a lot about what the rest of this season is going to look like for MJ. I said it was either at the last week or start of this week. Nobody needed the break more than MJ Melendez. It must have been Friday last week. Nobody needed the break more than him, I thought, for a physical and a mental reset. Get your mind right, rest a little bit, get in the cage if that's all you need, but reset, refresh yourself as we get into the second half of the season, because it has been such a difficult year. I think we are going to find out very quickly if this is just going to be an overall very bad, very down year for MJ, or if it is going to be the start of rebuilding that promise and that potential we saw when he was in the minors and we saw throughout last season. Again, a lot of these underlying numbers we've talked about over the course of the year. He hits the ball really freaking hard, and he hits it constantly. 91st percentile in the league in. That's great. That is awesome. It is very concerning then that his expected batting average, slugging percentage, things like that are so low. They are way below league average. And you think, if you're hitting the ball that hard, you should be getting on base more. Well, striking out in absurd number of times obviously is a major contributor to that. Bottom 10% in the league in strikeout percentage. Bottom 3% in the league in how often he whiffs at pitches. Bottom half in terms of how often he chases for pitches. Not good. Not good at any of those things. He's got to put the bat on the ball more often, because a lot of times when he has put the bat on the ball, it's worked well. Or at the very least, you're giving yourself a better chance to get on base, to drive someone in, what have you, when you're hitting the ball really hard. It's going to get through a hole more easily. It's going to bounce off the wall. It's going to go over the wall, whatever it ends up being. He's got to figure out those strikeouts. If he can do that fairly quickly here, and it turns out that this week and now 5 full days without a game helps him get refreshed a little bit, I would feel more encouraged. If we don't see that fairly quickly, I think this is going to be a pretty rough final few months for MJ Melendez. I'm going to take Scott Barlow out of the mix here because I think everybody expects that he's going to get traded. Give me one current Royal, 26-man roster, 27 tomorrow, I guess, who is going to get traded at the deadline.
One current Royal. Gosh, if you take Barlow out of the equation, I'm not sure I see, like, nobody's trading for Jordan Lyles. Like, come on, that's not happening.
No one's going to do the Royals a solid?
No, that's not happening. Nobody's trading for Kyle Isbell. Like, that is not going to be a thing that happens. And I do not think Salvador Perez is going to be traded. I really don't think that is the outcome that's going to happen there. I'll throw out Nicky Lopez. Maybe he gets moved. Maybe there's a team he can help as a 26th man. If he is moved, I mean, the Royals played him in the outfield in the last game before the All-Star break. Like that feels to me like maybe auditioning him.
Mhm.
Like, hey, maybe he can play the outfield for you because we need to get our guys into the lineup. We need to get Michael Garcia and Michael Massey. Those guys need to play every single day.
Yeah.
And Nicky Lopez is kind of the odd man out over here. And at 28, we know what he is. And he has a certain set of skills that can help a team that might be contending. And that's not what we are. So I guess I'll say Nicky Lopez gets moved.
I don't know if this is I don't know if Royals fans would like to hear this one. I'm going to throw Edward Olivares' name out there. He's got 3 more years of team control after this one. He's still got all 3 of his ARB years left to go. This season, he's hitting .242 on base under 30% of the time, but he's a Royal, so duh. Slugging okay, .410. It's right where he was last year, in fact. But he's getting on base less often, so his overall numbers have dipped a little bit. You've got some pop there. Now, you're not adding him because you just desperately need someone who can play the field, because you really can't. You will be more desperate if you put him in the field. But if you just need a bat, like if you have an open DH spot, or even you don't care about the fielding problems and you just need a good bat out there, I think a team would be genuinely interested in being able to bring him in. Plus, those RBers probably aren't going to be all that expensive in the long run, considering what his production has been in his career, which to this point has only been 1 above average season per OPS plus. I think that is a possibility. Now, that doesn't help completely with some of your log jams, but at the very least, you might be able to get something playable back for him in the minors, even if it's a long way off a low-level prospect with some ceiling, because you've got so much team control left with Olivares. I would throw that name out there. I'm not saying it's likely. I would just think that it's a name that a team could be interested in. I could understand why someone would want that player.
And maybe you can DH for that team.
Yeah.
Or if the smaller outfield, maybe you can get away with playing him in the outfield more than you can really realistically get away with it in Kansas City.
I like that you came up with this one. We'll close out our player predictions with this. Give me one super specific. That's the word Dan used. Super specific prediction about a player for the Royals.
Super specific prediction. I'm going to give you this prediction that when Scott Barlow is traded, the player that leads the Royals in saves from that point forward will be Carlos Hernandez, and the second leader in saves for the team will be Jonathan Heasley. I think he's going to get an audition in the late innings.
Interesting. I kind of like that one.
He's throwing hard out of the bullpen. I think that is worth pursuing and maybe taking a look at.
I will give you Daniel Lynch in his starts the rest of the way. So I don't know how the math will work out with his current 4.18 ERA. We'll have a sub-4 ERA the rest of the season. That's not Clayton Kershaw out there, but it's good. That is a good middle of the rotation kind of starter. I think he is going to be able to do that this year. He's above average in ERA plus this season. Underlying numbers are not great, but they're decent enough. I think he can go sub-4 ERA the rest of the way. We've seen enough good for him that I'm hoping that with a little rest, little confidence boost going into this back half of the year, he's going to show out. That would probably make him their best pitcher the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Because it's been pretty bleak for everyone else.
Here's a thought from the 785. The Bard has weighed in.
All right.
Get ready to, again, no Royals tonight. We were getting ready to start the second half of the season tonight with the Royals opening a 3-game set at home with the Rays. But no game tonight due to weather. So there will be a doubleheader tomorrow. But the Bard has weighed in on the text line from the 785. Second half, I feel pretty zen. Expect to lose 110. Let's measure the youth, because to tell you the truth, this year just can't happen again.
The record right now, tremendous work, by the way, Christopher. 26-65. What will the final Royals record be?
54-108. Worst team in Royals history.
Dang, I would have gone with something like that. Yeah, oh my God. 51-111.
Ooh.
Yeah.
$1, Bob.
I hate to be so negative, guys. I do, but it's hard for me not to be. Pythagorean win-loss. They're at 30 wins already. So that and $5 get you a cup of coffee. Let's get to a timeout again. No Royals baseball, as Dan just mentioned, tonight. Game has been rained out. There will be a split doubleheader tomorrow at the K instead. Right now, we're going to get to a break. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up, and we'll talk to Bill Hancock, the executive director of the College Football Playoff, later this hour. It's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
When you cut your finger.
Hell.
Time to find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. See if any one of our two news stories today can knock off the meth Uber. Did you get a chance to read this story? Fulton brought this one to us.
I caught up on this one.
Yeah, the gentleman who took an Uber across state lines from Massachusetts to Vermont, or New Hampshire, excuse me, to deliver 25 pounds of meth. Well, you can't take that across state lines. Probably shouldn't use an Uber for that. And oh, by the way, he delivered it to an undercover cop. What Is Wrong With You, of course, is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply, found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. For my story today, we are headed to Lincoln, Nebraska, where a man was found on Thursday with an assortment of knives and drugs at a hotel. Chief Deputy Ben Huchin said that the U.S. Marshal Task Force found 37-year-old Robert Ramey at the Wood Springs Suites near 27th Street and Fletcher Avenue. Ramey was wanted on narcotics and weapons warrants, and authorities had obtained a search warrant. So they get into the hotel, and they found $5,095, which the chief believes came from drug sales. They also found 102 grams of marijuana, 116 grams of what is suspected to be meth, THC, mushrooms, pills, and cocaine. And no, we're not talking morels or whatever, portobellas. No, not that kind of mushroom.
No.
And again, cocaine.
We got pictorial evidence that shows that.
Yeah. We also had in this hotel room 47 knives, 13 of which were over the legal limit of size. I didn't know there was a legal limit on knife size. I had no idea
there was a legal limit for the size of a knife.
Along with 4 throwing stars, a hatchet, a samurai sword, and an M80. He was arrested on suspicion of possessing with intent to deliver, possession of a deadly weapon by a prohibited person, and possession of money while violating drug statutes. That one is insulting. You can't have money.
So we have previously on What Is Wrong With You discussed the phenomenon of sword guy knife guy.
Yep.
I got to imagine there's a substantial overlap between knife guy / sword guy and recreational drug guy.
Oh, definitely.
Like, it's not 1-to-1. Like, I think you can collect knives and throwing stars and not be into recreational drugs. Just like I think you can enjoy getting down with some meth or some weed or some shrooms and not have to pick a number randomly, 47 knives on your person at all times. But if he was dealing, it makes you really wonder, okay, were the 47 knives for like protection? Was he going to build like a super knife, like duct tape them all together and use them as like one, like a round mega bayonet? Like what was the move with all of those knives in a hotel room? Because that then suggests to me that he's just carrying those around.
Yeah, he's just hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let me get my wallet. I got to dig through my knives first.
I don't go anywhere without my 47 knives.
So I really did not know there was a legal limit. I just figured all knives were kind of, within the same range.
I got to be real. Like if you did like a what are they called? Scavenger hunt. And you said, "Hey, go find some throwing stars." Like I wouldn't know where to go, man. I had no idea where to go get a throwing star.
Not a clue. What's your story today?
So for my story, we're going to Ohio and we meet Dr. Roxy. At least that was her username on TikTok. Her real name is Dr. Catherine Graw. I'm guessing at the pronunciation of her last name. From Powell, Ohio. And she was a plastic surgeon with a once viral TikTok page. We're speaking in past tense because TikToks are down and she no longer has her medical license because the Medical Board of Ohio has revoked Graw's licensure after she botched the surgeries of 3 patients, each of whom required medical care following their procedures. Board member Dr. Jonathan Feibel says, quote, "I strongly recommend that there never be a Dr. Roxy or patient 1, 2, or 3 and protect the people of the state of Ohio from this reckless physician."
Sheesh.
For a 5-year period from 2028 to 2022, Graw frequently live streamed patients' surgeries on her TikTok, amassing thousands of followers who tuned in to watch procedures. But a board member at Wednesday's hearing says Graw prioritized her social media presence over her patients. 3 patients were forced to seek medical attention after their surgeries. Some reported skin tears, infections, and other serious complications.
Gross.
Mary Jenkins, a former Roxy Cosmetics patient who successfully sued Graw in 2019 after the tissue of her breast reconstruction died, said the board's revocation of her license will hopefully provide closure to other victims. The board had temporarily suspended Graw's license in October and said she had been warned as early as 2018 about patients' privacy concerns regarding the live streaming of their surgeries, often in intimate areas. Yeah, I think I'd have some concern too.
Graw said she filmed videos in the operating room, quote, to make people smile in a world that is negative and difficult to navigate. What? What does that even mean?
Standing before the board, however, she said she understands how many of those silly videos appeared unprofessional.
This woman sucks.
Look, if I need a procedure done, if I need plastic surgery done, and it happened to be on a intimate or private area, you know I'm not going to? The person who might show it go down live on their TikTok.
The TikTok doc? No chance.
No, I'm laying there. I'm prepped for surgery. I'm about to go under, and she's doing the Dougie like in front of her phone with a ring light and everything.
Wow, this is the worst episode of Nip Tuck ever. Yeah, it was going to be hard to beat Knife Guy because the dude had 47 knives just chilling, along with a lot of meth. This woman sucks, and I don't like her, but this is a major true what is wrong with you. Plus, it hits one of our key thresholds you hurt a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, as far as we know, was just using knives like to look at. This woman wins. I hate her, but she wins. And I think this beats the meth Uber too.
I think the TikTok doc is our weekly champion. Like, how did people keep going to her for surgery? Oh, she's the one who streams surgeries and does the fun videos on TikTok. Cool. I'm going to go to another surgeon.
Wow, this looks fun. I'm not even going to bother looking up. I'm sure her medical record is fine.
Like, I'm not going to make fun of the people who watch the TikToks, because people will watch anything on TikTok. People are fascinated by surgery or whatever. Like, I understand why there was an audience for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why there's someone who's creating that content at the expense of the safety of her own patients.
That is bizarre. That is our new weekly winner, and for good for this week, our winner in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Bill Hancock, the executive director of the College Football Playoff, is up next on 580 Sports Talk.
Listen to this station anytime.
Hancock is the executive director of the College Football Playoff. And Dan, you and Jake got to talk to one of the more important faces in college football this week.
One of the most important faces in the history of college athletics and college football. Truly, Bill Hancock had a chance. Media days, Jake and I did, and had a wide-ranging conversation with him, had a lot to talk about, and this conversation jumps in right there with Bill Hancock admitting that, yeah, indeed, we got a lot of ground to cover.
I want to start off and say I've been listening to WIBW for 45 years and love the station. Always happy to, when I'm driving somewhere, always happy to get back in WIBW range so I can listen to the Royals. My wife and I live in Kansas, so we're Kansans through and through, and I think if you're a Kansan, you'd love WIBW. But yeah, college football, 12-team tournament starts year after this. This is this upcoming season is our, as you know, our last season with 4 teams. So we're going to take the plunge into 12, and it's going to be awesome.
What was the most difficult part of getting to 12 or to 8 or to 6 or to 16? What was the hardest part? Was it the number? Was it getting the TV people together? Was it getting the conferences together? What was the toughest part on getting it to expand?
Remember that our event we are an LLC. We're owned by the conferences, by the 10 conferences. And I think, frankly, the hardest part was getting the conferences together, getting them to understand that we do need more participation. That's why we expanded, more participation. Duh, no brainer. But getting them all to agree to that, we had a little time when we thought we were going to be able to expand, and then we weren't because 3 of the conferences weren't ready to commit yet. All the conferences had to commit, and eventually we got there. So, yeah, I think getting the conferences to all get on the same page to move forward. The number 12 worked out to be great. 6 conference champions and 6 at-large teams. 4 byes, 4 first-round games on campus. These will be some of the biggest games ever played on campuses. Whoever those 4 teams are in that first year will just think, my goodness, look what hit our city. Look what's coming to Aggieville.
How we can't agree, I could pull 10 people out from this Big 12 Media Day office, and there's going to be someone who's like, no, we didn't land on the moon. So how did you get all 12 people, all 12 conferences to agree to it? How because someone, I don't want to do this, and it had to be unanimous. So it's almost like it's impossible to do.
It was a lot of collaboration, a lot of conversations. My bosses, they're the conference commissioners. They're collegial. They want to do what's best for the game, but they did have different ideas about what's best for the game. But eventually, I think everybody thought, no, we do need more participation, and 12 teams is the way to get there.
So the best way to kind of describe the seeding. So the conference champions get selected because they won their conference title game. How do they get seeded then? Is it going to be through the committee again? Is the committee going to be the same? And then the committee selects the other 6. Is there going to be a rule where an SEC team can't play another SEC team? How is it all going to go down?
Yeah, the committee will stay in place just like it has been. We don't think there'll be even any changes in the committee's protocol. So they'll rank the teams. The top 4 conference champions will get the byes. But the committee has to rank them. You have to be ranked by the committee in the top 4 to get the bye. And then they'll just rank, obviously, the rest of the other 2 conference champions will also be in the playoff. And then the committee will rank the next 6 at-large teams to fit in. And the ranking will produce the seeds. So 5 will play 12, 6 will play 11, et cetera, in the first round. And then it's a bracket. It's like the NCAA tournament bracket, except there's only 12 teams.
We're talking to Bill Hancock. He's the executive director of the College Football Playoff, joining us here from Big 12 Media Days at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Bill, you've set a date for the end of your tenure as the executive director. You'll step aside when your contract expires, February of 2025. How involved, if at all, will you be with choosing a successor?
Probably not very much. And I'm doing this retirement with mixed emotions. I think everyone who's ever retired, if they're lucky, they look at it, they have mixed emotions about it. But it was time for us. My wife and I have a lot of adventures we want to do while our health is here. We just got back from Antarctica, speaking of adventure, so I guess that counts. But I've never been to Norton, Kansas, for example. In Kensington, Kansas, I want to go.
See, I've been to Norton. I've never been to Antarctica.
Are you a wrestler? That's what I want to know.
I am not. No.
Okay.
I have broadcast high school basketball in Norton, Kansas, but I have not wrestled there, and I have not been to Antarctica. So
yeah, so mixed emotions, but overall, really happy with my career. I've been in this field for over 50 years, and I can't ask for anything more.
You were the employee of the College Football Playoff, like the employee when this whole thing started. You were under orders to put it kind of all together yourself. When you look back, what was the most difficult part of getting the College Football Playoff up and running? If there even is one, if there's one thing you can point to that say, I can't believe I solved that problem.
Well, let me say this. No one will ever have an opportunity like the one I had, being the only employee and having the board say, get it done. get a staff, get a selection committee, finish the TV contract, get bowl games. And so the first thing I did was get a staff to do all the work. Hardest part, I don't know. I love putting the staff together. I mean, I got to go and handpick people like you pick an all-star team to go play in an all-star game. That was fun. I didn't know enough to be scared. Looking back now, I think, oh my goodness, they wanted me to do this, and they entrusted me with the opportunity to do this. I think if I had it to do today, I'd probably be scared to death. but I just didn't know enough back then.
You were on the staff of the Big 8 Conference back when it was the Big 8 Conference. When you look at what the Big 12 is now today, with, for the time being, 14 members, new expansion into Florida and Provo and all these new cities, Houston and Cincinnati coming into the league this year. When you look at what the Big 12 has become and maybe in the process long-term of becoming under Brett Yormark, what are your thoughts about how this league has grown and how it appears to kind of have stabilized itself in the college football landscape, college sports landscape?
Yeah, I am so proud of what Bob Bowlesby was able to do in bringing in the 4 new members. In the Big 8 days, we were a family, and Ernie Barrett, Bob Frederick, and just go on and on, Ted Owens, go on and on down the list. But we were a family. We fussed. We had Nebraska and Oklahoma that had the football panache, and then we had KU and K-State that had it in basketball. We were a family. I don't know that conferences are the family the way we were back in the day, 45 years ago in the Big 8. But I look forward to what goes down with the Big 12, and I'm very excited about what the new members are going to bring. I think people are going to there'll be some great rivalries built up, and we're going to look back in 20 years and say, my goodness, who knew KU and Cincinnati had such a great rivalry? And people will say, they didn't used to play each other, and we'll go, yeah, they didn't, but now they do. So none of this can be taken as a short-term. With a short-term view, you have to take it with a long-term view. And I'm telling you that 20 years from now, this is going to be a mighty awesome conference.
We're talking with Bill Hancock, the executive director for the college football playoff. One thing that a lot of people brought up was you got the first round of the college football playoff games at home sites. The second round is not. So let's say, for instance, Georgia's won the last 2. Georgia's number 1 seed. They don't get a home playoff game at home, whereas a 5 seed who didn't have as good a year as Georgia does get a home playoff game. How did you get that to pass? Because I'm assuming the Georgias and the big-time schools are like, man, we might not get a home game. That's not fair for us.
They might not get a home game. You know what they get? A bye. And that really says it all. They get the bye, the top 4. And I think they'd rather have a bye than a home game.
Is that what is that kind of how it was able to pass through? Is that they did feel like, hey, you know what, the bye is more than a home game?
Yep, I think that for most people, that's the way they think about it. I'll tell you one other thing about college football. Everybody has an opinion, and the opinions are different. And my golly, I love that. I love debates about this. But there are lots of people that say what you just said, not fair. We don't get to play at home. The others go, time out. You get a bye. So love it. That will continue, just like the debate about with Team 5, and it'll be Team 13 in the new day. They're going to be disappointed. When I was director of the Final Four, back then, Team 65 was really disappointed. Well, I'm happy we have that. I'm happy we have an event where Team 5 and Team 13 and Team 65 is disappointed, because that shows that we have awesome events.
Last thing I'll get to you. So could the college football playoff, do an unofficial, hey, this is what the playoff could be or would have been if we had it this year? We know because the college, conference champions, we know 1 through 6 are going to be in the playoff. Could there be, and I know maybe that's the bad thing to do it, but maybe it'd be kind of fun to say, hey, look, next year, when we have the 12-team college football playoff, if we had it this year, this is what it would be.
That will happen. Y'all can do that on the air, and you and lots of others will be doing that. Heck, they already did it last year. I don't think we will, because we want this to be about the 4. That hey, there's going to be a national champion this year, and we can't have 1 foot in 12 and then the other in 4. we're going to have to put all of our 2 feet in the 4-team event. But y'all are going to have a lot of fun with that once after selection day.
Oh, yes, no question. Well, Bill, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. It's going to be a busy day for you as well. I know the selection committee gets going there in October. We appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks. And just know you've got a loyal listener in Bill Hancock.
That is Bill Hancock, the outgoing executive director of the College Football Playoff. Good stuff.
He's got a couple of years yet. Last day will be February 2025.
Okay.
But so he's got this year, and then he's going to oversee the first year of the expanded playoff. But I don't think it's exaggerating to say it's one of the most important figures in the history of college football, Bill Hancock.
Oh, easily. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We've got 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk, and we'll fill it up with plenty of 580 Sports Talk headlines. That'll lead off the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. 1 hour to go today, 1 hour to go this week on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We're, of course, back on Monday for another full day of Sports Talk on 580 WIBW, mic'd up from noon to 3, 580 Sports Talk from 3 until 6. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up here in just a matter of moments. We're also still taking your texts throughout the rest of the show. Text line number is 785-272-9429. And our YouTube comment section is open. YouTube channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. We're just 15 subscribers on YouTube away from 300. And as I promised you yesterday, we'll do something fun on the show. We'll give something away. We'll celebrate somehow when we get to 300 subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed already, go check it out, youtube.com, and search for Sports on 580. Our channel is the first result. Then you can watch the show, video version of it, and you can hang out in the comment section along with listening on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Let's jump right into our headlines, Dan, because the biggest one broke just about an hour ago. No Royals baseball tonight. The Kansas City Royals second half opener, series opener against the Tampa Bay Rays has been postponed. Instead of tonight, the Royals will now play tomorrow, 1:10 and 6:10, split doubleheader at home to open the second half of the season against the Rays. Do we know exactly who the starter for game one is going to be of that doubleheader?
No, we only know the game two starter.
Yes, we do know that Cole Reagans, who the Royals acquired in the Aroldis Chapman trade, he is going to make his Royals debut coming up in the second game, the 6:10 first pitch tomorrow. And according to the Royals, actually, Alec Marsh is still scheduled to go. So Brady Singer, at least according to MLB.com, Brady Singer has not just been pushed back, he's been bumped. It is currently listed as Alec Marsh at 1:10, Cole Reagans at 6:10, and then Jordan Lyles as scheduled on Sunday.
Huh.
Interesting. Now, that is obviously subject to change. That might not be officially official, but at least according to MLB.com, that is the lineup for this weekend series for the Royals against the Rays. If you had a ticket to go to the game tonight, that will be honored at the 1:10 game tomorrow. 6:10 ticket will obviously be applicable for the 6:10 first pitch. Split doubleheader, not a traditional doubleheader. All those games you'll be able to hear right here on 580 WIBW. So that is your Royals update. They'll have to wait one day longer to start the second half of the Major League Baseball season.
First headline for me, it has not been a good week in Evanston, Illinois. Obviously, with the firing of longtime head football coach Pat Fitzgerald in the wake of allegations about a hostile environment in his football program where hazing and incidents of racism were rampant. Pat Fitzgerald is not the only former Northwestern coach to find himself unemployed this week, as the university fired their baseball coach Jim Foster yesterday after there were allegations of bullying and a toxic environment within the baseball program. Now, Inside NU, I believe, is the blog that had a great deal of the information surrounding Jim Foster, who was a first-year head coach. He'd come to Northwestern from West Point. And some of the details are wild. Before you get to the bullying, before you get to belittling assistant coaches in front of players, screaming at assistant coaches during games in the dugout in front of players and spectators, before you get to the part about where he gave speeches at the team banquet in which it was apparent that he barely knew the seniors he was talking about and was mispronouncing their names. There's details in the allegations about Jim Foster that he just wasn't really interested in doing his job. Like the fact that he was absent from 14 out of 18 team workouts in January, or that he would spend many of the team's practice sessions away from the team sitting at his computer. Also, the fact that Northwestern went 10-40 last year with a 4-20 record in the Big Ten Conference.
It's not great.
And then half the team entered the transfer portal, which usually when half of your team enters the transfer portal and it's the same coach expected to be there the next year, yeah, that's a big problem, especially also when among the 16 players that entered the transfer portal, 3 of them were your team captains. So obviously there were some things that were wrong with how Foster was running the Northwestern baseball program. Apparently, the university had planned to fire Foster, needed to get all their ducks in a row legally and everything like that. And they were going to fire Jim Foster before any of the reporting came out about Foster's foibles, shortcomings as a coach. But then the legal department in the Northwestern Athletics kind of got a little distracted. And they had to put out another fire first. So that is why it took so long for Foster to be let go. But that is 2 head coaches fired in a week, fostering, no pun intended, some pretty awful environments, it would seem, in their programs. And it makes you wonder at what point the athletic director and the university president might also be needing to update their resumes.
So to that point, and Vance in the YouTube feed, and Mark agrees with them, says, I think the AD at Northwestern needs to be investigated for allowing all of this. Here's an interesting question for you. Little trivia question. Do you know, since the beginning of the Pat Fitzgerald saga, do you know how many times Northwestern athletic director Derrick Gregg has spoken to the media?
I'm going to guess it's none, considering that that's the first time I've heard Derrick Gregg's name.
You just fired the most significant athletic personnel member in the history of your university, who is an icon to the best player you've probably ever had and the best coach you've ever had over a prolonged period of time, because of a sickening scandal that he was already suspended for and now has been fired for and is now going to sue the university possibly over for breach of contract. Your baseball coach has been fired, a guy who you hired after he had already been involved in a wrongful death case at a previous job, who is now treating players poorly, and he has not spoken publicly once. In fact, Derrick Gregg has not even put out a statement this entire time. At least the president of the university has put out long, loquacious statements about all this. Derrick Gregg has not said a word. Nothing. Not written, not texted, not in a press conference, nothing. And that's not just media members want to be in the know and want to report on this, yada, yada, oh, you media guys are so whiny. No, man, this is like the public deserving to know. Everybody involved with Northwestern who has a stake in the athletic program and in just the university deserves to know what is going on with its athletic department. And the fact that their athletic director, who's been on the job since 2021, so he's been around Pat Fitzgerald, he's been around Foster, has not said a word to anyone anywhere is unforgivable. And Derrick Gregg should be fired for this. There is no way you can keep this guy around. I don't know if he's scared. I don't know if he's cowering. I don't exactly know what is going on. All I know is you cannot live with this, and you cannot keep him around. You have to fire this guy. He hasn't said a word. You fired 2 coaches from major programs in a week. And no, just nothing.
Probably, I would imagine the legal department is getting its ducks in a row to make a third firing fairly soon.
I would imagine so. By the way, Northwestern, while we're talking about what's going on with them, they have a new head football coach in the interim, David Braun, or maybe Brown. It's spelled like Christian Parker's name. He has been promoted to being the head coach for Northwestern football.
Yes.
So this is significant. He is brand new. He was just hired this offseason to be the new defensive coordinator. So he is jumping. He was hired from North Dakota State. He is jumping essentially in one offseason from FCS coordinator to Big Ten head coach. That is crazy. Northwestern's probably going to be pretty bad this year. But it's understandable because he doesn't have a connection to any of this. He's brand new. He was not around for the running and the car wash and the Shrek list and all these awful things going on in the Northwestern locker room and away from the team facility. So that one makes sense. Can you make sense of this for me, though? Why is Pat Fitzgerald the only guy who's gotten fired? Are you supposed to believe, as an outsider who is learning about this through the dogged reporting of the Daily Northwestern and Adam Rittenberg at ESPN and various other outlets, are we supposed to believe that it was not only did Pat Fitzgerald know, but he's actually the only coach or support staff member who knew? Is that what I'm supposed to believe?
I mean, he's certainly the figurehead. He's certainly the most important member of that coaching staff. But yeah, it does believe, like everyone else, is kind of escaping consequences for this. I think what the university is hoping is that maintaining the rest of the staff helps them keep a football team together and keeps it even by its own modest expectations for this year, a capable and competitive football team. I mean, they went 1-11 last year.
Mm-hmm.
The outlook for this year wasn't a whole lot brighter, but I would imagine that the idea is if we keep the assistants, it will be as smooth as possible for the players who return, and we can return as many players as possible rather than have them enter the transfer portal at this late stage. I mean, we're a month out of the start of the season just about. So I think that's probably the thought behind it. And the other thought being that, okay, if some of these coaches were responsible, well, maybe they won't be retained by whoever it is we go out and hire to be the long-term head coach of this thing.
And I get all of that. But I think Northwestern has handled this as poorly as possible. Like, if you want to say we're going to take a stand against this, then tear it all down. Tear out the roots. And they are not doing that. I think it's ridiculous to not fire at least people who have been around for this. Their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach got hired in 2019. So if you're saying that Pat Fitzgerald knew about these things that were going on with his team over the last 4 years, how do you not make the same argument that the coordinators knew or the guys who've been around on the staff knew? The logic just isn't there. And if it's true that the idea is, okay, we're going to keep the team together as much as possible, and then our next head coach is not going to retain these guys anyway, that's just cowards. That is cowardly, and it's embarrassing. And you, as one of the premier institutions of higher learning in the United States, should not stoop to that level. That's my personal opinion about Northwestern, and I think it's shameful how they've handled this whole thing, to be honest with you. Not necessarily the fact that they fired Pat Fitzgerald, but the fact that they have still bungled this at nearly every turn.
Yeah, I don't think there's any better way to put it than that. I think you said it exactly right.
Next headline we'll get to here in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Sticking with college football and sticking with punishments, the Tennessee Volunteers have escaped a bowl ban in the wake of their NCAA Division I infractions case, which revealed its findings earlier this morning. However, the investigation into the program found over 200 violations during the tenure of former head coach Jeremy Pruitt. Yeah, just a few. 200! That is absurd. Here is a short form of the penalties. 5 years of probation, an $8 million fine, along with other financial penalties that will total closer to $9 million, and a reduction of 28 scholarships. The $8 million fine is believed to be, according to Chris Lau of ESPN, the largest ever levied in an infractions case. The NCAA describing it as, quote, equivalent to the financial impact the school would have faced if it missed the postseason during the 23 and 24 seasons. So they handed out a huge fine, but said you can play in the postseason. For what it's worth, I like that. That is good. Don't punish the athletes. The current guys who are there were not a part of this. Do not punish them. That doesn't make sense. So that, I think, is entirely fair. This is also from the Committee on Infractions. They say the panel encountered a challenging set of circumstances related to prescribing penalties in this case. The panel urges the Infractions Committee and the membership to clearly define its philosophy regarding penalties, which extends beyond postseason bans, and memorialize that philosophy in an updated set of penalty guidelines. So again, for the future, don't punish the current athletes. That's what they're saying. Tennessee will have to vacate all wins and individual records in any game in which 16 sanctioned players participated. Those specific games will be announced later, but ESPN sources indicated that any wins vacated would come from Jeremy Pruitt's 3 seasons, not from the last 2 under Josh Heupel. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you're probably fine with that. You're probably fine with saying, yeah, please forget that the Jeremy Pruitt era ever happened. The Volunteers were also credited for a self-imposed 16 scholarship ban over the last 2 years and another 2 this year, which means 10 more scholarships will be taken away over the next 5. This is a huge penalty. obviously they were committing a ton of violations. 18 level 1 violations. KU got 5, which was huge for basketball.
Right.
Tennessee football got 18. A lot of them are pretty bad. A lot of them you certainly cannot do. Some of them, though, were like classic NCAA. There's a story about a mother of a player receiving an envelope full of cash to pay for a medical procedure she could not afford, which not going to dive into how sad that is in general. But that, like, you wish there was a way that teams or coaches could help out families like that. They can't. It is against the rules. Sucks that it is. But 200 violations is absurd. By the way, Jeremy Pruitt has a 6-year show cause penalty. So essentially, no one's going to hire him in college football for 6 years. He has been an assistant for the New York Giants for the last 2.
Yeah. That's the end of his head coaching days, I would think.
Which, in fairness, if you watched Tennessee for his 3 years, might have been it anyway.
Yeah, why would you hire him in the first place?
200 violations. That's insane.
Next headline for me, as promised, Major League Baseball released its 2024 schedule yesterday. Here are some of the highlight key dates for Major League Baseball next year. The season will open in March, relatively early March. The 20th and 21st, that's when the Dodgers and Padres will open up the regular season in Seoul, South Korea, the first major league games to be played in the country of South Korea. The Dodgers and the Padres will play the first 2 games of the 2024 regular season. The traditional opening day will be March 28th. All 30 teams will be in action on that day. All 30 teams will also be in action on Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th, on Lou Gehrig Day, June 2nd, and on Roberto Clemente Day, September 15th. In addition to going to South Korea, Major League Baseball's World Tour will hit Mexico City and London next year. The Rockies and Astros will play a 2-game series in Mexico City, April 27th and 28th, while the Mets and Phillies head to London to play a 2-game set June 8th and 9th. On June 20th, the Giants and the Cardinals will play at historic Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama.
Very cool.
This is something of a spiritual continuation of the Field of Dreams game, which did not take place this last year. This time it will be played at Rickwood Field, which was one of the homes of Negro League Baseball for many, many years. A historic stadium that has been kept in working shape over the years, was a long-time home of the Birmingham Barons of the minor league and the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues. The Cardinals and Giants will play there June 20th. The All-Star break will be in mid-July. As always, the All-Star game taking place in Arlington, Texas at Globe Life Field on July 16th. The season will wrap up September 29th. What about the 2024 Royals? They will open their season along with just about everybody else on March 28th. That is a Thursday. They will be at home, opening at home on a Thursday against the Minnesota Twins. They'll play 3 with the Twins, no game Friday. They'll play Saturday and Sunday before their first road trip when they go to Baltimore for the first 3 days of April. The Royals will, in April, play or visit the New York Mets. In May, they will host the Milwaukee Brewers. Giving you the interleague dates here. Final weekend of May, first weekend of June, Royals will host the San Diego Padres. The Yankees come to town mid-June, the 10th through the 13th for a 4-game set. The Royals will be in Los Angeles, play the Dodgers the weekend following that. The Miami Marlins come to Kauffman Stadium the final week of June, the 24th through the 26th. Royals head to Denver to play the Rockies first weekend of July, the 5th through the 7th. First meeting with St. Louis will be right after that, the 9th and the 10th, a Tuesday, Wednesday, 2-game series week before the All-Star break. Arizona and the Chicago Cubs come to the K back-to-back series late July 23rd through the 24th, or 22nd through the 24th for the D-backs, and the Cubs on the weekend, the 26th through the 28th. Going to be some big crowds at Kauffman Stadium, I'm sure, when the Cubs come to town.
I will be there no matter what.
The Cardinals come to the K the 9th and 10th of August for a brief 2-game series, giving the Royals a Sunday off day in August, which is Truly weird and kind of revolting. Royals go to Cincinnati next year, 16th through the 18th of August. Philadelphia, the Phillies, come to the K the 23rd through the 25th of August into September. The Pittsburgh Pirates will host the Royals September 13th through the 15th. The Royals will host the Giants the 20th through the 22nd. The 22nd of September will also be the home finale before the Royals finish with 6 straight road games against National League East teams, wrapping up their regular season with games at Washington and at Atlanta.
So, does every team in Major League Baseball do the 2-2 interleague thing?
Yes. So that is how the rivalries, I guess, are maintained. So that's what you have from Dodgers Angels. That's what you have from Cubs White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have from, obviously, Cardinals Royals. It's a way to
Mets Yankees.
It's how you maintain those regional interleague rivalries. But obviously, not everybody has a natural rival. So other teams are just kind of paired up.
So, like, who are the Rockies
Houston.
paired with?
Houston.
Okay.
And so next year, they'll play 2 of their games in Mexico City and the other 2 in Houston. Rockies are giving up 2 home games for that one. So, yeah, you have some pairings that are less natural, certainly, than others. Like A's Giants is a natural one. I mentioned Dodgers Angels, like Marlins Rays, the Florida series. But
banger crowds for that one, I'm sure.
Always.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was an every team thing. I knew about Cubs White Sox, the Subway Series, the Freeway Series. I knew about those. I knew about Royals Cardinals. I did not realize that that was every team, because I would have never thought that Rockies Astros was considered the protected rivalry.
Yeah, everybody has one.
I was going to say it was stupid and they shouldn't do it because who cares? Because I'm going to be honest with you, unless you are a Cardinals fan who lives in Springfield or maybe Columbia, no Cardinals fan cares about the Royals. I guarantee you. Or maybe you live in Kansas City and you're a Cardinal fan. But the people of St. Louis or the greater St. Louis area, they could not care less about the Royals. That's trying to think of a college rivalry that's very much the same thing. KU fans do not say K-State.
Mizzou, Illinois?
No, that one's got some... Okay, Illinois, Michigan. Illinois fans do not like Michigan. There is a lot of beef there, a lot of nerd beef there. Michigan fans could not possibly care less about the University of Illinois. It could not care a single iota less. That's what that feels like to me. I don't know. But I guess if everyone has it, so be it. I'm over interleague play. If the Cubs and White Sox never played again, I would not lose sleep over it. I would not care one bit. So I don't know. Cool. The Missouri series.
Yeah, I don't mind how you do it, but I mean, if everybody's playing everybody every year anyway, I don't think you need to do the protected series. Just do the 3. If it's that
do a
regional,
4-game series.
Yeah, just do a 4-game series. Exactly. Make it a 4-game series in one person's ballpark, and then you get to host them the next year, like college football.
Yeah, for real. One final headline for me. This is a real quick one from college basketball. Arguably the best transfer available right now that we know of, a grad transfer from Alabama, Javon Quinterly. He has picked his new destination. He is headed to Memphis. He will be a Tiger to play for Penny Hardaway. That had been a persistent rumor for a while. In fact, depending on who you ask, that may have been determined before he entered the transfer portal. So if K-State is looking for another guard, another experienced guard, probably not going to find one who's played as much basketball as Javon Quinterly. He is on the way to Memphis.
Final headline for me, couple of injured all-star pitchers. This is not great news for the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Cleveland Guardians. Clayton Kershaw underwent an MRI on his left shoulder prior to the all-star break. Says he'll miss a few weeks before he returns to the rotation for the Dodgers in early August. He was placed on the injured list July 3rd. Had been 10-4 with a 255 earned run average, made his 10th all-star game, but dealing with some shoulder inflammation, so he'll be out for the rest of July at least. Also, the Guardians holding their breath regarding the health of their ace, Shane Bieber, former Cy Young Award winner, is experiencing some forearm and elbow discomfort and needs an MRI. He will be skipped his turn in the rotation as Cleveland reopens play this weekend.
That sucks for both of them. They're both a lot of fun to watch, and shared my love of Clayton Kershaw before. Hope he's okay. Honestly, for the Dodgers, I mean, if they make the postseason and he's healthy for that, that's what matters. But that's tough because they need some pitching help.
Yeah, this is not like the Dodger teams where they just go down and get a ready-made AAA arm who's going to come up and throw 102-mile-an-hour pitches that break 10 feet. Like, they don't have those guys. Well, they did have those guys, but those guys all kind of got hurt.
Yep.
Like, this is not – the Dodgers aren't the Monstars. They're going to miss Clayton Kershaw. They're not another one of those that they can go get and hold down the fort. So, yeah, be interesting to see how, because the Dodgers are very much in a dogfight at the top of the National League West with the upstart Diamondbacks.
By the way, I was wrong. I did have one more headline for you. Did you know that a North American professional sports record for futility was tied last night?
I did not.
The Edmonton Elks.
When you said North American, I knew this was going to be a CFL thing.
The Edmonton Elks of the Canadian Football League lost last night. They got blown out by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. That was their 20th consecutive home loss. They did not play a 2020 season in Canada due to the pandemic. The last win for Edmonton at home was October 26th of 2019. That ties the St. Louis Browns in 1953, I believe, for the longest home losing streak in North American sports history. The Browns were so bad, they are now the Orioles.
Yes.
They didn't get to stay.
I think they moved a year later. So.
Yeah, that's how bad they were. Yeah, a new record for futility. The quarterbacks, by the way, the Edmonton quarterbacks are just a who's who of bummy former Big 12 guys. Taylor Cornelius was backed up by Jarrett Deggy.
Ew.
Yeah, it's gross. It is awful. And Taylor Cornelius had a really funny pick six last night. It was a very Brock Purdy at Iowa State kind of pick six. That does it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's get to a quick timeout. When we come back on the other side of this break, some news and notes from around the college sports world. A lot of realignment news and notes from the lower levels and some rumors at the higher levels, too. We'll get to that coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Looking for a tractor that's as versatile?
Dan, are you aware of who the newest Division I school is as of this coming academic year?
Division I?
Yeah, newest Division I school.
Is it Queens University in North Carolina, or they joined last year?
They are not who I was thinking of, but I think they joined last year.
Might be last year.
I believe they joined last year. I can double check on that, though. I was thinking of a different school.
That I'm not sure I can come up with that. I was thinking of Queens University of Charlotte was the newest one, and
yes, okay, they joined last year. So 22-23 was their first transition year at Queens. They are now in the Atlantic Sun Conference. Yes. This school actually shares a hometown with a Power 5 university, Lemoyne, the Dolphins. They are in Syracuse, New York. They are moving up to Division I starting this year. They just released their basketball schedule today. There's a little trivia question for you. Also, from the lower levels of the NCAA, we've got a new Division II school, Sul Ross from Texas.
Yeah, former D3.
Yep, they announced today they have gained approval from the NCAA. They will join the Lone Star next year, so 24-25.
Sul Ross State, right? Or, Sul Ross State. Yeah.
Correct. One of the 18,000 schools in the state of Texas.
In Alpine, Texas, Southwest Texas.
Oof. I bet there's a lot going on down in Alpine, Texas. They are joining Division II in the Lone Star Conference. Also, I wanted to note this. Does the name Jim O'Day mean anything to you?
It does not.
He is a former athletic director, spent 7 years as the athletic director at the University of Montana.
Okay.
And he was on ESPN Missoula today, Missoula, the home of the University of Montana, and said that North Dakota State and South Dakota State are actively trying to leave FCS to join the Mountain West. That would be fascinating. I don't think it's going to happen, but that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I kind of love that. Like if they want to play Division I FCS football, Mountain West make a lot of sense, I think, for both schools. But man, North Dakota State in particular, like you got a good thing going.
Yeah.
You got a good thing going right now. You're Division I and everything, and you rule the roost. In FCS. I said FCS, or I meant FBS, obviously, the bowl subdivision. But they got a good thing going, ruling the roost in the FCS. Is the money that good? I mean, it probably is. Probably yes. That's probably why you would do this. But you got a really good thing going right now.
There is it's sort of like what we talked about with Travis Kelce the other day about how, you might feel like you're not getting exactly what you deserve in terms of your production, but if you're happy with where you are and you feel good, there's a lot of value to that. You are one of the better basketball teams in the Summit League, which is not a good league, but you're getting to the tournament every once in a while. Now, there's more money in the tournament if you go to the Mountain West and more teams make it in, but I don't know that they're going to win all that much in the Mountain West in that sport. Same with the women's basketball there. Football, you win tons of national championships. Same for South Dakota State. South Dakota State just won a national championship. They got past NDSU to get there to win it. So they're doing pretty well right now. You travel a lot. You're not going to be the biggest dog anymore. I mean, you'd get some fun match. I mean, playing against Boise State, North Dakota State, that'd be awesome.
Hawaii.
Yeah. You want a culture shock? Send the Fargo clan out to Honolulu. Yeah, that'd be a blast.
I love the thought of watching North Dakota State, Hawaii, 1 a.m. Central Time.
Truly sicko football. But yeah, I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. The talk has always been if they move up, they'll move to the MAC. But, I mean, the MAC, there's no money in the MAC.
Yeah, and I don't see that fit either. Like, I think the Mountain West makes a lot more sense. If they ever did that, I think that would make a lot more sense.
Culturally, I think it makes a lot more sense. I think of the Dakotas much more with like Colorado, Montana, that part of the country.
Colorado State feels more like a peer institution. If Fresno State feels like more of a peer institution.
Yeah,
a lot of agriculture in the valley.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I mentioned this earlier. I heard a podcast spot from Dusty Dvoracek down on a station in Oklahoma from Big 12 Media Days. And he said, and I am paraphrasing here, but essentially, I'm not going to guarantee anything, but be paying attention to Big 12 realignment in the next 7 days. Essentially, next week, do not be surprised if something happens. And the logic was essentially, you heard Brett Yormark kind of shy away from the realignment stuff this week. And what would he's a disruptor. That's what they said. He's a disruptor. You know what is disruptive to the other major conferences? Announcing realignment while they are at media day. So just be on the lookout. I don't know who his sources are. I just found that to be interesting. So I've been scouring the globe for all things realignment, and I got Lemoyne and Sul Ross.
Well, Big 12 already jumped Pac-12 in the line to get a new media deal done. And now the ACC has jumped ahead of Pac-12 to get a deal done with the CW.
I was going to ask you about that. Your thoughts?
I think it makes a lot of sense. Like,
yeah.
So the inventory that the CW is getting for the ACC is essentially the inventory that used to be the old Jefferson Pilot, like Raycom, the games that would go to local cable. Big 8, we're in Big 8 country. The old Phillips 66 games.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because I remember as a kid growing up in Colorado, the Phillips 66 games on Saturday, they would end up on local cable in Denver. They would end up on, I want to say it was KWGN, which was like a WGN affiliate in Denver.
In Chicago for the Big 10. We got Big 12 sometimes too, but the Big 10 games were on WCIU in Chicago.
Yeah. So you had that distribution, and it's kind of an outmoded form of distribution, doesn't really exist anymore. So the ACC had taken those games and they were on Bally. They were in Bally Sports. So I remember a couple of times last year turning on, my cable box and seeing, Duke is playing North Carolina State on Bally Sports. That's weird, but okay. Yeah, sure. I'll check this out. My understanding is a lot of y'all listening maybe don't get Bally Sports. And also, if you've been reading the news, things aren't awesome for Bally Sports' parent company right now. So that's not the most viable way to distribute your inventory, your remaining inventory. If you don't have the ACC network does a lot. You have ACC Network Plus, but this was inventory that had a home, but it wasn't a home you were guaranteed to be able to access. But I bet you can find the CW no matter where you're at. I bet you can find the CW.
Yes.
And you've got any kind of cable or any kind of streaming, you can find CW. So it makes a lot of sense for the ACC to do that. And frankly, probably would have we made fun of the Pac-12 for you're going to be the lead in to Live Golf. That's funny. But when you really look at it, it's better than being on Reach TV in the airport, which I think is the Pac-12's next option.
Yeah.
It's better than being on the TV network that's the show at the gas pumps.
GSTV. And honestly, now, well, shoot, we might be the lead into tape-delayed Live Golf or Dawson's Creek or Seventh Heaven, but we're also following another football game, which seems significant as not Pac-12 network. But I'm sorry, I interrupted. You were talking about realignment in the Pac-12. I believe it was Pac-12.
Yeah. But the point I was trying to make is now there's one less route to getting their games on television. So I wouldn't be surprised if some schools in the Pac-12 just said, we are done waiting. We can't wait around. We have to, make a move to secure our future.
I think it would make sense.
But I've been saying that for the last month or two, and it hasn't happened yet. So
we're waiting, Colorado. Spots right there for you. Let's get to a quick break. When we come back, some initial thoughts on the start of the second half of the baseball season, which begins tonight. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
This is a special alert.
Brendan and Dan here with you, finishing up 580 Sports Talk on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. No Royals baseball tonight. Game was knocked out because of the severe weather we have had throughout the Northeast Kansas and expanded area today. But the second half of the Major League Baseball season does begin tonight. Dan, give me a storyline or a headline even that you are going to be hyper-focused on as we start the second half of the year.
So I'll give you a team that I'm most interested in, and I'll give you a player that I'm most interested in. The player I'm most interested in is Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Atlanta Braves. He's my favorite player to watch in the league right now. You may be familiar with the 40-40 club. 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases. Not a lot of members of this club. Jose Canseco did it. Alfonso Soriano did it.
Yep.
It's not a big club. Not a lot of guys who got 40-40. How about like 40-70 or 40-80? Ronald Acuna Jr.'s got a legitimate chance to do that. He's played in 89 games. He's got 21 dingers and 41 stolen bases.
Wow.
He could invent the 40-80 club and be the only member of it. And I am rooting for it because he is awesome. And the team he is on is really, really good. The Braves, 60-29, best record in baseball. Team I am most fascinated by is probably, as much as I hate to say it, it might be the New York Mets. 42-48. Right now, they're 7 out of a wild card spot, but they have spent so much money on that roster. So what do? They ride it out with their veterans. Do they think about maybe selling off a piece or two if it doesn't get any better for them in the next couple of weeks? Or do they try and add some pieces? Does the owner, Steve Cohen, say, you know what, the heck with it, let's just go out and try and add some talent. I don't care what I got to pay him. I'm trying to win a World Series here. What direction do the Mets go? They I think they're very interesting moving down the stretch.
The one thing more than anything else I'm focused on. I mean, I'm interested in my favorite team is like on the fringes of in the hunt, and I'm very curious if we are actually at all competitive with the Chicago Cubs or if it's going to be a sell-off in a couple weeks or what. The Angels reportedly today are going to listen to offers for Shohei Ohtani. I've got a buddy who's a Yankees fan, okay? And I mean, everyone's going to draw that connection. And he proposed on Twitter today a potential trade for the Yankees to get Shohei Ohtani. And I looked at it and I thought, you know what? This sucks. This is horrible. But then I thought more about it. I thought, every trade idea for Shohei Ohtani sucks. Yeah. And that's why the Angels are in the worst spot possible. In all likelihood, they are not going to make the playoffs this year without a crazy run.
5 games out of a wild card spot, 7 games back in the West, and no Mike Trout for at least the next 4 weeks.
And Anthony Rendon is a ghost. He's not any good anymore. Or at least hasn't been good for a while now.
But you have Shohei Ohtani. And when you have Shohei Ohtani on your team, you should try to win.
Right. But you're in a spot where it's going to be very hard to make it to the postseason. If you trade him, it is impossible to get fair value.
No.
Generally speaking, with superstars in baseball, it's already hard enough to get fair value in return. But with Shohei Ohtani, he is a top 10 pitcher and a top 10 batter at the exact same time in one body. There is no equal value. You cannot get it. So you're giving him away at a loss if you trade him. But if you go through the rest of the year and then he leaves in free agency, which is obviously going to happen, then you get nothing. You get what, a competitive balance pick?
Yeah.
That's nothing. That is completely zero. So the Angels are in an awful spot right now. And if I would love it if Artie Moreno just went nuts and went out and bought a bunch of pitchers and, supplemental bats at the deadline and said, screw it. Why not? Might as well give it one shot. But I know he's not going to do that because he's a bottom 5 owner in all of sports. And it sucks. It blows. And if I was an Angels fan, I would be like drinking Windex this week. I would be miserable probably because you cannot win in this situation, which sucks because you got the best player in the world.
The most unique player since several generations.
Yeah.
And they're going to be traded and you're not going to get replacement value back for him whatsoever. And that's why I think their move is like you said, go out and get a piece. You don't have a lot in the farm system. Oh, well, trade it for that piece. Make one final run. Because I guarantee you, your fans will understand. Like, if you really give it a go and it doesn't work out, then your fans can at least say, well, you know what? They tried. And I would rather try when you have Shohei Ohtani than not try and say, we're going to rob you. You know, he may not be likely not to be an Angel after this season because he hits free agency, but my team decided I get 2 less months of watching this baseball unicorn, this alien play for my team. I'd be very hard to forgive, I think, from an Angels fan perspective.
And honestly, if you're a fan who says, yeah, you got to think about the future, you got to think about the farm system, I don't want to talk to that fan anyway. You have Shohei Ohtani. There's not another one.
Yeah, you may as well try when he's here, because once he's gone, you'll never have another player like him.
Never again. One final timeout we've got to get to here on the show. We'll come back. We'll finish up the week. A very busy and very fun week of 580 Sports Talk with the final word.
One more thing. In conclusion, you better wrap it up.
It's been a full, fun, busy week on 580 Sports Talk. Let's wrap it up with the final word, Dan.
Quick word of gratitude for everybody supporting and enjoying the Big 12 Media Days content Jake and I were able to generate down there in Arlington the last couple of days. But also on this day, we got to salute a legend that is departing the halls at WIBW and Alpha Media for the final time. Our engineer, the great Rick Smith. Smitty is calling it a career. 41 years at WIBW. He was behind the board, a studio engineer for the Royals for many years, including the 1985 World Series. He's done some K-State stuff, so a career in sports broadcasting, but so much done behind the scenes. Smitty is truly irreplaceable. We're going to miss him a lot around here, and a great guy, too. Just awesome company and a great storyteller and a great voice. And Smitty, here's to you. You'll be missed.
Toast. Jake's wine glasses are still in the studio, so I'll toast to Smitty. Smitty, thank you for everything, my friend. Incredible guy. Absolutely incredible guy. Congrats on a well-earned retirement. Final word for me today, along with a send-off to Smitty, is thank you guys for hanging out with us all week. A lot of fun interviews. So excited for college football. It finally feels like it's here. We're so close to fall camp, so close to kickoff. August 31st. We're just a month and a half away from the first game of the college football season. I cannot wait. We are back on Monday. No Royals baseball tonight, so we'll have more sports talk. Our next sports broadcast coming up Royals baseball tomorrow. Sports Talk and Mic'd Up coming up on Monday, noon to 3 and 3 to 6. Until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Thanks for listening to 580 Sports Talk.